Culture at universities. We're going to cross back to our reporter Iviwe Poti in Eastern Cape. She is in Port Elizabeth and she now has Kempie Van Rooyen with her to tell us more about rape culture and how it affects those on our campuses. Iviwe?
Sakina, thank you so much. I think, Kempie, let's get right into it. Obviously, a very heavy topic. But I think let's start off with the point of what is rape? The consent part of it, what is to harass, what is yes, what is no?
I think we make it a little bit more difficult sometimes than it actually needs to be. For people, adults to consent to sex is very simple. There must be a yes that's involved, in some way. So any harassment, for example, is crossing a boundary and you're feeling a little bit uncomfortable. But with sex, it's about yes and no, and it doesn't matter if someone is in the middle of sex and they say no, then that means consent is no longer actually there. It doesn't actually, if you have consented for one time and someone wants to have another round of sex and they say no, that is not, then consent is actually withdrawn. So we sometimes make it a little bit overcomplicated. In terms of our law, it's actually quite simple.
And then taking it back to what we're facing now at the moment, the rape incidents, gender-based violence incidents that are happening at institutions. I mean, in the past 4 or 5 years, we've seen some of our major institutions, WITS, UCT, NMU, Rhodes, facing these issues. We've seen protest actions, silent marches, naked marches, trying to create awareness around these issues. In terms of the education for the young male and the young female, people that are still in institutions as well, what is it that we are maybe missing?
Well, I think we're actually moving in the right direction in terms of some of the conversations that are actually happening at universities, and the fact that we see more and more reporting of rape incidences seems like it's something that's getting worse, but it's actually something that's getting better because it's easier to report rape. But some of the conversations that need to happen is often about how we relate to one another, but also in terms of especially how we construct maleness and masculinity. Often men are taught, for example, there's a few things that you need to do to be a man, and one is that you must have sex and you must drink and you must be physically violent and those kinds of things. So in terms of those conversations, often that model is used for people to interact and relate to one another, and for men and women to talk to one another about that is actually a very important part of the picture, because rape is the end of conversations that happen way before the act actually starts. There's a whole lot of things that happen beforehand, and it's good to see some of the conversations actually happening at institutions.
And then, Kempie, I think also very important when we're speaking about the cases, which is after the act has been done. What are some of the psychological issues that one must go through? Why do we see people reporting a case and then maybe cancelling or withdrawing the case? Or also the relation between holding someone at ransom to say, okay, I'm going to report a rape crime.
Reporting is a problem all over the world, but also in South Africa, and it's got to do with when you do something that you feel is embarrassing, we rarely tell people about it, and rape falls at the extreme end of that. So a rape victim, amongst other things, often feel a lot of shame, and it's something that doesn't want to be. You don't want other people to see that, so. It's naturally held close, and it's not uncommon for people to report a rape quite late, much later than when it actually occurred. And we see, and the criminal justice system cannot actually hold that against you. It's one of the legal things that's unique to rape reporting, is that you can report it much later, and it's because it's such a shameful experience. It doesn't mean that the victim has done anything wrong, but it feels like that. So, it is quite common, for rape for that part of rape to actually lead to the late reporting and things, and that's what's very difficult for a rape victim, because then they need to tell that story again and again and again, often to people who aren't trained to listen to the story in an empathic kind of way.
Kempie, thank you so much for your time. Well, Sakina and the viewers, there we have it, that sometimes it's the difficulty that comes with actually reporting, which might cause an individual to take longer to report the case, or actually maybe just refrain from reporting the case at all. But I think for now, let's cross to the sport with Valen.